should also point out that Emmett Goodman
great.
He's helped out on a lot of that.
And Savannah Winchester is
And
here too.
Savannah's here.
Yeah, really works on the story course side. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean the process is a little different all the time, but the basic thing is even before we begin, Savannah and I and Rachel Hartman at StoryCorps are in communication about, you go through and choose which stories, and sort of bring it down to maybe 8 or so, and then we're going to pick 4 of them. So we discuss those 4, and then from there, we'll start on 1. And we take different approaches, partly because we see the purpose of the animation is basically to make the story out. So the more pieces of animation we can get out, the more stories are out, which also means, sometimes we do less animation or different types of animation for different stories, and that's a determination we make. In these, one of them, the first one was sort of this in-between style, which is fairly limited.
So the first one was the woman from Texas talking about growing up with her guy.
Yeah. So with that, we used more text, we used more limited animation, and so that's kind of the first choice, is how detailed the animation style is going to be. Often we kind of wind up ignoring that, still doing way too much animation anyway, but that's the conceptual process. So then from there, we listen to it a lot, and we sort of internalize the stories as much as possible, and just think of, hear it and think, what does it look like? And start drawing out ideas, and then hopefully we can talk to the people whose stories they are. Generally, we've been able to do that because pretty much everybody's been with us, although in a few cases that hasn't been true.
You mean they've passed away?
Yeah, they passed away, yeah. Or have such limited availability that it's not feasible. Because there are a lot of very old people recording these stories. And so I'll have a conversation with them, learn more about them, find out if there's anything particular they want to show, like in the story about the transgender Vietnam-era soldiers. They were really into this anecdote between the two of them about cutting off palm fronds. And every time we say it, I think it's hilarious, and I wonder, nobody knows what this is except those 2 people. And it's super important to them because that was the moment in their lives when they realized, oh, we have this kinship. And maybe it's going to mean something to somebody else. It's also kind of funny and just a cute little sort of snippy animation in there. So that's kind of the general big creative process. I mean, after that, it's all sort of, nuts and bolts, and we draw everything for the most part, drawing it digitally. I mean, you use mostly Flash, right? Yeah. Different animators use different things, so it doesn't really matter. It's generally everything.
The one story you didn't talk about is the second story, which is the Glenda Elliott story.
Yeah.
Any stories about doing that?
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorites. So I remember I had a little bit of trouble sort of getting a hold of her, only because she's very busy. She's a teacher or a professor and an academic administrator. And I remember I teach at RISD 1 day a week. And I remember I was up at RISD on my break, and it was pouring rain, and I was outside, and I had this half hour, 45-minute, very long conversation with her, which I had to do because it was such a moving conversation. And but one of the things about that is, even though my personal story is very distant from her personal story, I felt a lot of connection to it and was able to sort of integrate moments from my life and my personal history in that, when she finds out the Laureate's cancer collapses so it's, if I feel like if I can make this connection with people's stories, then it can be opened up and transported that other people can hear these stories and make similar connections.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Actually beautiful. I've been doing radio for many years, and I'm used to be an audio purist person, and it was the animations. I didn't think there was a way to make the audio stories more visceral and powerful than just these authentic stories of everyday people talking to each other with no motivation except love. And seeing these visuals made me understand that there is a way to actually take the audio up to another level. So these are even better than the original audio stories. I'm very grateful for the work of Richard, the other animators who have worked on these. So we are going to move on to the main attraction, Stonewall Out Loud, which is the name of a not only this project to record elders across the country, but was adopted onto a mini documentary that we're about to watch. So I'll tell a little bit of my personal story. I'm the proud son of a gay father, and when about 31 years ago, my dad came out to me, and it was a shock. I was just talking with my brother about how the first thing he said when we found out was that our nuclear family just exploded, which was very clever, I thought. Shock. And he hadn't remembered that. We just talked about this last week, and he was impressed as well. I had just started in radio. I was 22 years old, and I had no idea my dad was gay, which is actually kind of idiotic because my dad was a psychiatrist and he was a well-known gay activist, but it hadn't occurred to me that he was actually gay. He was still with my mom. So I was still shocked when he came out, and I wanted to. We had kind of a bunch of strained conversations, and at some point he mentioned Stonewall to me, and I had never heard about it, and it was kind of an amazing story. And I decided, I had just started in radio, I decided to pick up a tape recorder and find the people who were at Stonewall and interview them and find out what happened. And over the course of doing that documentary, I met some of the most courageous, amazing human beings I've ever met in my life, and put together something that at that time was called Remembering Stonewall, which we did for the 20th anniversary of Stonewall, and was the first broadcast documentary ever about the riots. And I dedicated it to my dad, and it led to many more years of us being extremely close together. He ended up actually dying on the anniversary of Stonewall 7 years ago. Last year, as we were thinking about the Stonewall Out Loud project, we needed to raise some money to do it. So I decided to sell my baby, this 30-year-old documentary, to YouTube to raise money so that we could hire staff in order to do Stonewall Out Loud. And I've had some experiences in Hollywood which weren't great. I didn't expect much, but YouTube ended up hiring a group called World of Wonder, who are the people who do RuPaul and a lot of, they did The Eyes of Tammy Faye, very talented, two guys who are extremely talented and do documentaries for many years. And they took this radio documentary and created something completely different. Basically, they had YouTubers and actors and actresses mouth the words of the original, lip sync the words of the original documentary, and put together this thing that turned out to be, I think, kind of beautiful. So we're going to watch that, and afterwards we're going to talk to two of the people who we're honored to have here, who are actually in the documentary from 30 years ago, and now from 2 months ago when YouTube did this. So let's watch Remembering Stonewall. It's about 25 minutes, it's about 30 minutes, and afterwards we'll have a little bit of a conversation, so enjoy.